Good coffee. G'day. Today I am going to be actually covering a new type of blade, one that guaranteed you will not find anywhere. This was one of the very first swords I ever made, and honestly, the way it turned out compared to others, this thing is more than I could have asked for. It turned out great. There are some flaws with it that we'll go over that I did not realize when putting it together, but beyond those small flaws, as a blade itself, it is very, very functional. The steel is very strong and hard. The handle is, contrary to its appearance, very comfortable to hold, even if I wanted to go two-handed. So let's get into it. Alright, so speaking unbiasedly, first impressions of this for appearance, that handle is really goofy looking. And I know that it was my own design choice, and personally I like it, but for a lot of people that have seen it, some of them, the impression it's given is just that. It looks goofy. It is a piece of elk horn that I had cut down into making the handle, and it's perfect diameter and position for being a sword handle grip. For some people, they find it actually really awkward because of the lack of counterweight. It's probably maker's bias that I have with it. I have no problem with swinging or using this one. Secondary is the sheath. Or scabbard in this case. It is pretty janky looking. You can see little holes in it here, here, from what used to actually be nails in the oak. This was a oak wood pallet that I had, and I had pulled all the nails, cut it down, put it through my planer to smooth it out into the right thickness of planks to make my sheath out of. For me, I don't mind it. Eventually, I do plan to try to leather wrap it, and I can fill those voids with some wood filler, just enough so that it doesn't overflow and fill in where the blade is. It does contour to the shape of the blade fairly nicely, and I had managed to take down a lot of the mass by sanding it down and planing it down so that it had more of a streamlined shape. So for all in all, that turned out pretty well. The style of the belt is very minimal. You know by now that I just tend to lean in to it at this point. The Weaver leather reins for saddle string and such. It's perfect diameter for basic medieval belts. It's a 15th century style of belt suspension where I have the lower belt for attaching to the base of the blade to help keep it from spinning. It's quite secure. I don't have an issue of it flopping around when walking, sliding around, anything like that. I have very little trouble drawing it as well. For the type of steel of the blade, I actually would not be able to tell you what it's made out of. Reason being is when I was building this, I had been under a budget and was just trying to make do with what I could find. I was going through the hardware section of a farm supply store, and we're in the aisle where they have all the tractor supplies, for plows, brush hogs, and things of that. I found a stabilizing arm that seemed about the right size to draw out and cut down into shape. And that's what I made this out of. It's a stabilizing arm for a tractor. The steel is hard. My buddy that was teaching me how to bladesmith at the time, when he tested it, he was impressed with the quality of the steel and the consistency. So for a price point of that versus going online to buy the higher quality steel, it ended up being a fair bit cheaper. I only had to pay $35 for the total of this steel. All the shaping of the blade was done via a grinder or belt grinder so that I could get a consistent shape to it. And I had gone up to 600 grit for the polish. The blade has had some wear on it. I'm seeing a few areas where I need to hit it with some maintenance, a little bit of rust here and there, but nothing too extreme. I mean, it is just plain bare steel. Other than that, the blade shows no damage. And I've done quite a bit with this. I've hacked it on some trees just for the fun of it. I've stabbed stuff with it. The point has not broken off. The one big flaw about the blade is that lack of a pommel on the end makes it very blade edge heavy. I'll put the weight in for the blade itself right here so you can get an idea of how much weight that is on the end of your hand, because it's like feels almost like holding a 2.5, 3 pound dumbbell out on the end of a 2-foot stick. My buddy happened to have wrought iron, and something a lot of people don't know about wrought iron is it has grains like wood. So once it's been shaped and you dip it in acid, it brings those grains out to where some people can get confused and think it's Damascus. It's not Damascus, it's actually wrought iron. And you can see here on the guard where I had the knuckle guard right here, the best area to look at it for that wave in the grain. It's a very, very beautiful appearance, and I could not complain about that. He just gave me the steel or iron in this case. He just gave me the iron so that I could make the guard out of it to try to be a little more fancy. We were originally trying for the more stylized guard where you have a S on its side, similar to my S-guarded bastard sword, but in place of being laying flat, the S would have had a part curving down to protect the knuckles and another part curving up the back of the blade. In the end, it was just proving a little too difficult to make. I was trying to use a railroad track spike that I had drawn out, but it was getting to a point of frustration just to make, and he said, "You want to try a simpler guard?" I said, "Sure," and he gave me this. Downside is when I was gluing the handle on, and the handle is strong. There's no way I'm going to be able to fix this. If you know of another way I can fix it, please tell me, but the guard ended up being a little bit loose. I got maybe a 64th of an inch worth of space and slop on one side of the guard, so it rattles, which is quite annoying. If I can figure out a way to fix that, I will. Until then, I'm stuck with it. The handle has maybe a tang about 5 or 6 inches long set into it, and it is epoxied in. There was a little bit of slop in there as well, so that there was a wall of epoxy for a little bit of shock absorption, which does work. The epoxy I chose has a semi amount of flex and ability to absorb that kind of shock so that I'm able to utilize it in the way I had planned when putting on the handle. What happened with the guard and handle is when I put it all together, the handle was tight and I had pushed it down as far as I could. Thought I had it enough. I was even using a dead blow hammer on it to get it knocked down as far and tight as I could. As the epoxy dried, it pressed the handle out ever so slightly to leave that slop in the guard. Along the blade, I have yet to actually sharpen it. I've left a 1/16 of an inch space, so flat, on the edge of the blade so that I could actually use this for reenactment if I wanted to in the future. In order to do that though, I'd have to remove the point a fair bit, likely down to there, so I could round it. I also, on the back edge of the clip point, put a semi-sharp edge. It also is dull, so you can't cut yourself on it. But if it was to be sharpened up on the main edge and the clip point, it would actually make for a nice stabbing space. Back to the sheath. When I made the sheath, I was using what materials I had on hand. I just wanted a sheath to actually put the sword in so that I had something to protect it. It turned out great. I am not going to complain about any of it, especially since I used secondhand material. A very thick spine on the back, and it tapers all the way forward. There is no distal taper, and even with that, it's not all that heavy. I mean, I feel comfortable holding it. It didn't end up being too thin in any spaces. Up at the top mouth of it, for the opening, there is one wall that got pretty close to me going all the way through with the sanding. Luckily, I managed to save it in time. The only flaw with this sheath is sometimes, I'm not sure what causes it, but the blade binds a little bit when being drawn. I think it's when it's pulled forward, and because of that curve, it's just binding on one end. So as you can see, I'm not holding it straight. And at the point in the clip where it's going in, I can feel that binding, and even when I put it flat, it is a little bit grippy. I think what it was is not enough space between the back edge and the blade edge between the spine and the blade of the sword that prevents it from sliding through. I wish that I had known about this trick before by taking a piece of felt and gluing it on the inside to add a little bit of extra bind and water absorption. Too late did I find out about that trick, and it ended up being just a bare wooden sheath on the inside. I didn't even think to put a foam pad inside to prevent the sword from wanting to fall out. So even with all the detractors of this sword, would I trade it for anything else? No. To me, this sword is priceless because it's a lot of lessons learned in my first venture into making swords. I would love to make another one just like this and try to fix the flaws, especially with that guard. The title I gave this one, since it's, as far as I know, no one's made one within these parameters before, so I called it the Idaho Bowie. Especially since it's made in the USA. Messer means essentially big knife or fighting knife or just large knife, long knife, whatever. And in the US, our biggest fighting knives, especially during the Spanish-American War, was the Bowie knife. So I modeled it somewhat after Jim Bowie's own Bowie knife, but with my own interpretation, since I'm drawing the thing out way long. It doesn't have the same exact blade profile, but I was trying to be within the spirit of its design. That's actually what the original handle would have looked like, was his handle, but over time that changed down to the Elkhorn handle, so that I would have a little bit larger of a handle grip. So that was a review of one of my own swords. For a ranking, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10, mainly because of the lack of a counterweight in the pommel, which I think maybe in the future I could figure out if I was to carve out a little bit of the space in the pommel and add some kind of weight to glue in or screw in, depending on the method in which I attach it, as well as a slop in the guard in the quality of the scabbard. It is a sword that if I found it at a Renaissance fair, I would personally buy it because it is so hard to find Messers at places like that. You usually find the most generic type of blades and wall hangers that anyone could come up with. This one is truly battle ready. It could take an impact. It can give an impact. It's not going to break on you because that tang, I believe at the shoulder, is about a 1/2 inch and it tapers down to 3/8. With that all said, just let me know what you think down in the comments. Is this the type of sword that you'd want to see more of in the future? And if I do make one, should I record the process? I've considered with some of the building projects I've done doing that, but I don't know if it would have any kind of interest. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you want to see in the next one. Take care.